Game of Thrones, my all-time favorite TV show of all time. Today I'm going to rank all 8 seasons. Spoiler warning, if you haven't watched the show, please don't watch this video, there will be spoilers. I read all the Song of Ice and Fire books. I've watched the show several times, maybe more than 10 times in total. I'm a really big fan. My least favorite season of Game of Thrones is season 8. By this point the show had totally become fan fiction, and maybe even worse than that, a mix of fan service that is almost fourth wall breaking, with constant subversion of expectations just for the sake of shock value. It's no longer shocking if you're doing it all the time. The characters aren't themselves anymore, and it all turns into the opposite of what the intention by the books was, which was to critique that there's no pure good or evil, that there aren't really real heroes in this world, and that everything is grey. Episodes 4 and 6 are probably the 2 worst episodes of the whole show. Episode 2, in my opinion, is probably the most overrated episode. It reminds people of the good old times with lots of talking in close rooms, but it misses the spark of the earlier seasons. It's not as good as that. Next we have season 7. Still a shadow of the earlier seasons, but since it didn't leave you with this feeling of emptiness and void that season 8 left you with, it has to be ranked above it. Although the last 2 episodes of this season, starting with Beyond the Wall, are already season 8 territory in terms of giving up logic and everything that George Martin intended. Gives it up for silly action spectacle. It looks good, yeah, but I still even prefer the look of some of the earlier seasons, which looked much more gritty and believable. I also think they should have moved the plot much slower. The whole teleporting stuff becomes laughable and takes away lots of the fascinating things about this world. The travel aspect, that things take long and are difficult. This has nothing to do with the Song of Ice and Fire books source material anymore, unfortunately. Next up we have season 5. So this breaks continuity, since it's not season 6 but season 5. Why so low? First, on the plus side, this feels more in accordance with the real Song of Ice and Fire than season 6, not to mention the fanfiction that are season 7 and 8. It's dark and gritty, so it has the feel us fans want from it, and the self-aware joking and winking hasn't yet jumped the shark. But season 5 can be a slog to get through. It's paced slower than any other seasons. It has some of the worst plot lines of the whole show, Dorne and Braavos especially, but also Meereen isn't really interesting anymore by this point, and this is the first season that lost momentum that the show built up constantly from episode 1 of season 1 until episode 10 of season 4, I'd say. Those first 4 seasons were an impeccable stream of brilliance, escalating more and more, and the world unfolding more and more. The perfect pacing and world building, but that's suddenly lost here. It's a season that could have worked much better, since there was still much book material to pick from. There are some awesome plot lines in the Feast for Crows book that could have been used for season 5, but they were either totally neglected or done very underwhelmingly. So a season which still gets the vibe of the book sort of, but doesn't really know how to present that vibe in an exciting way. Next up we have season 6. This season has much more highlights and big moments than season 5, but it also has much more lowlights, and in fact it's the first season that really has any major lowlights. It's the first season that feels more like a typical action-adventure show. A brilliant one at that, but this is not why a Song of Ice and Fire fans, why we are here for. We are here for the more subtle moments, the character drama. Season 6 emphasizes the big moments, reveals, plot twists, battle episodes, explosions. It's all very cool and exciting to look at, but it feels a bit empty compared to the depth of the world that the previous seasons had. Characters like Jon Snow lose a lot of the depth, for example, in order to become typical action heroes. And yeah, that's not how I would have liked these things to go. But by this point, Game of Thrones was already the biggest mainstream TV show of the decade, I guess, and the showrunners, I think, they wanted to adapt it to for a kind of a mass audience. All in all, a very, very entertaining season, but the first that didn't feel true anymore to what it used to be. Also, a lot of the sex and dirt and grit is now gone. The characters are either good or evil. The grey, the ominous, that is now gone for more, I'd say, consumer friendliness and also political correctness, one could say. Next one is season 2. And from now on we are talking about the golden age of Game of Thrones. I consider all those 4 seasons masterpieces and the best TV show ever made. If I had to rank the first season of House of the Dragon, by the way, it would be here, between season 6 and season 2. Not as good as season 2, but very good. Hard to say why season 2 is my least favorite of the first 4 seasons, because like I said, it also it's a fucking masterpiece, what can I say? Without the other 3 seasons ahead of it, it would still be my favorite season of TV ever. The Battle of Blackwater Bay is, in my opinion, the second best battle of the show and one of the top 5 battles in TV or movie history. The other 9 episodes have some of the best character drama and development of great characters. And it's noticeable from the start of the season that the production budgets have gone up since the first season. This helps with the world building, and we get stunning locations in Iceland and in Dubrovnik, King's Landing. The world begins to feel so vast and rich here. It's fantastic. Next we have season 1. I can't describe how overwhelmed I was when I saw this for the first time. That was almost like discovering the Beatles for the first time. People who know me or my channel know how much this statement means. I hadn't yet read the books by the time I watched the first season, so I went in without knowing anything about Westeros, Essos and so on, and I was blown away. It was the kind of show I dreamed of, but never believed it could be done. I'm a big fan of history, of the Middle Ages also, of mythology, religions, geography, pop culture. Those are, my main interests and hobbies since ever. And that show not only delivered on those things, but the grown-up, brutal way it did it, that was, a real unexpected dream come true for me. I'm pretty tired of typical Hollywood storytelling. I don't watch blockbuster movies these days. So, Game of Thrones just did not give a fuck, and I loved that. And season 1 masterfully established that, and all its characters, the houses, the regions, but still left so much unsaid, and the cryptic way it hinted at things and the intrigue, it felt very mysterious and esoteric and eerie. And what a fantastic way to set up your world. It felt like Middle Earth for cynics, and I loved it. Next up we have season 3, my second favorite season of Game of Thrones. What a season! I would say season 3 and 4 are the visually most beautiful seasons. Now the production budgets are obviously enormous, and the money is on the screen, but not yet with that overblown CGI of the later seasons. There's CGI here, of course, too, but it's handled more subtle and with taste, and the landscapes, the real landscapes are so beautifully shot and make this world seem so big and interesting. And in terms of plot, this is one of the most spectacular seasons in TV history, I would say, with of course the iconic Red Wedding, which is a perfect episode, called The Reigns of Castamere, of course, but not even in my top 10 favorite Game of Thrones episodes. That's how much I love the show, especially at this point. I'd say from mid-season 2 to the first episode of season 5, which is still on the level of seasons 1 to 4. This show was a roller coaster non-stop, shooting relentlessly on all cylinders, and season 3 is right in the center of that golden age of Game of Thrones for me. But my favorite season always was and always will be season 4. Absolute perfection. What can I say? If I drank all Game of Thrones episodes, I'm sure at least 5 from season 4 would make my top 10. and all 10 episodes would make my top 30. My two all-time favorite Game of Thrones episodes are episode 9 and 10 of this season. 9 is my favorite battle in all of movie and TV, The Watchers on the Wall, that's what it's called. And episode 10, The Children, is my favorite episode in TV history. The culmination and the apex of so many characters and plot lines. The music is also at its best here. Especially love the scene at the end where Arya is riding the white horse and then meets the ship's captain from Braavos. That's really a goosebumps moment for me when the music comes in. The cinematography, the acting, this season has peak Hound, peak Arya, peak Tyrion, peak Jon, all my favorite characters peaking here. And of course it has the big one-hit wonder that is Oberyn Martell. I'm also in the minority of people loving the Bran plotline. I love all the mysticism, a lot of it taken from Germanic myths, I suppose. But by the way, I'm one of the very few that is happy that Bran becomes king in the end. In fact, I said to my girlfriend as early as season 2 or 3 that I think he will be king in the end. He will be on the Iron Throne in the end. Believe it or not. And season 4 is the one where he starts the whole, three-eyed crow raven thing, and the tragedy of Jon and Ygritte. I love that very epic, very mythic moment. So in terms of drama, action, this is the best, and it's also the one where the sense of humor is at the right level. It's not that silly. Especially with Arya and the Hound, I think that's the best dynamic of two characters in the show. So that's it. My ranking of all Game of Thrones seasons. Maybe I will do some more Song of Ice and Fire related content in the future. Let's see. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, goodbye.